From the Post Building in downtown North St. Louis, this is Inside City.
Hello.
Yo.
Welcome. So great to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be in here in this beautiful studio.
Yeah. So you're no stranger to podcasts. This is kind of your world now with the podcast that you're doing. But excited to dive into some conversation, get to know you a little bit and your insight of how this city of St. Louis is in the food world and in all the other things that you do. So if you could start off by giving a little intro to who you are, what you do.
Yeah, I have to commend you first. Insight City, you said Insight. I noticed that. So from one podcaster to the other, I have to give credit where it's due. So my name is Braden, born and raised here in St. Louis City, to be exact. Shout out to Dutchtown, beautiful area. Someone that always saw the potential in St. Louis. When I was growing up, Dutchtown wasn't like the best neighborhood, so you got to see a lot. Went off to college, and whenever I was coming back, everyone was asking like, oh, are you sure you're moving back to St. Louis, or why are you moving to the city? And I'm like, well, everything I enjoy is there.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what about X, Y, Z? And I'm like, first of all, I don't have kids, so I don't have to think about schools. I don't have to think about that. But it's funny because a lot of those people actually moved to the city, and some still live there. Some lived for a few years and they went on to another city. So it's just funny to me. But I've always seen the potential. And then like people would always say there's nothing to do here. There would be, it's interesting like listening to St. Louis people talk because they'll tell everyone about all the bad stuff before they go into the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I guess I just have a different perspective on life and of St. Louis because there's a lot of fun, free stuff to do here. But yeah, I was in the corporate world for a good 10 years or so. And I was kind of getting tired of that because I knew where my life would be in the next, 40 years, retirement and all that good stuff. And so during, it was right before COVID, I thought about creating a page. It was actually from a buddy of mine, his dad, Mike, shout out to Mike. We were watching the first ever Battlehawks game and yeah, first ever. And he was like, you go to all these places on your personal page, you tag them and we see it on your story for 24 hours and then it's gone. And cause like people would be like, hey, where were you at, last week and this and that. I'm like, I don't know. I live in the moment. I can't remember. But Mike said you should create a blog. And I'm like, I'm not really a writer. Like I've always been respectably, I have a short attention span. Right. So I was into like photos and videos. Like I create the content I can consume because I like tell me what I need to know real fast.
Let's get there.
Yeah, respectively. So COVID happened, world shut down.
Yeah.
And I was going to launch 314 Day in 2020. And one of the driving factors was that I felt like I was seeing this same polished St. Louis life on display where, it's no knock to traditional media, but it was always the same 4 platforms showing the same people, the same places. And I'm like, that's cool. But like no one's showing what it's like to even sit in the last row of Busch Stadium one day and sit in the first row, sit in the green seats and buy $5 seats, right?
Yeah.
Eat on the north side, the south side, Clayton, Chesterfield, whatever. So I saw that as a responsibility, but the world shut down. And then I really like honed in on, the mom and pops because I was seeing all these ads for the chains that don't make you smile and, things like that. But like no one was like highlighting the mom and pops. And I saw that as an opportunity, one, to like showcase what they have to offer. Because at that time, a lot of places only had like, 5 things on their menu.
Yeah.
And then also build a community because like 5 things bring everyone together: food, music, laughter, sports, and art. Some people don't care for art. They don't care. I know art falls under, art and, music, things like that. But like some people don't care to laugh. They don't care for art. They don't care for music. They don't care for a lot of things, but we all have to eat. So food is universal. I joke with people. I tell them that some of my followers are probably fresh out of prison and some of them are billionaires. Some of them are, middle school kids that I've spoken to. And then the other ones, they're CEO of companies. Yeah. So food is universal. And I could dive deeper. But yeah, it just really got started as no one else was doing it at the time. Food brings us all together. And, 2020, 2021, it was like showing people uh, what you can expect when you go back out to eat. And I started doing reels
Mm,
to show that experience of, hey, this is what a restaurant looks like.
yeah.
Because that was a whole year of our lives, which is crazy to think about that we didn't go out to eat.
Yeah. No, that's a huge point there of like we did have to kind of reacclimate to being out. And I know one of the things, while you were talking about the mom and pops that didn't have the technology or didn't necessarily have all of the things to keep going the same way during they had to do massive changes
Mm,
in order to stay afloat during the pandemic. Um, that time frame that shall not be named.
mm,
But kind of how you were able to step in and be their marketing arm and be able to help and highlight, like, hey, no, they're still open. You should make sure that you go there. And I can't remember how we initially got connected, but I do think that our first conversation did kind of spark in the feeling of one believing in St. Louis and knowing that there's something here
mhm.
and that we love to hate this place, but at the end of the day, we do still love it.
Yeah.
And so how can we get to the love it part faster? How can we start to like get below and it's fair to acknowledge the things that make us uncomfortable about St. Louis,
Hmm.
but how do we get to the things that spark joy about this place and make that the first thing versus what comes after. And so I'm curious for you, you started off doing like exclusively foodie content and really honing in on those mom and pops. And then there was a bit of a shift and you
Hmm.
kind of just became like a St. Louis influencer and you are um, kind of telling the larger story of this place and you then went into it full time,
Hmm.
left corporate.
Yep.
Praise you for that. I think that is
Oh,
amazing. It's
best decision ever.
mhm. I think many millennials
Hmm.
dream of that day. But what was it that sparked you making that transition and going full time and broadening kind of what you talked about?
So that's a great question. So St. Louis often gets in its own way. You have the city, the county, and St. Charles County, and they always feel the need to compete against each other. But the world is bigger than St. Louis. And so even when I got started with this, people were like, well, why are you trying to help other people? Why are you trying to, sit down and you're doing like influencer boot camps? So you're consulting with, platforms that are now some of the biggest in the city. Like, why are you doing that? And it's because one, I saw the value in modernizing our our media scene here in St. Louis because people started in their days on their phone, right?
Hmm.
And we were seeing a big shift too of a lot of people that were in traditional media are now on the social space. But I saw that like the more I can teach people to how to do it, grow that foodie scene, that foodie culture, that can drive the tourism into our city because people are connecting with people. Sure, there is a lot of content out there now that looks like infomercial or they look like infomercials and they sound like infomercials. So you're just like, okay, it's whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like growing that scene. I got to leave corporate. I wanted to leave corporate early on, but I had to finish my MBA, make sure I was in a good financial place before making that jump. What people don't realize, even though it's BradenSTL, the first few years of me doing this, I was actually getting compensated more from outside of St. Louis than I was here.
Hmm.
And when I talk to other people, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's normal. St. Louis always does that. We never value our talent. We never work with those people. We never collaborate with them. But man, we get a lot of inspiration from them. We get all the ideas, and then we try to create a watered down version of it.
Hmm.
And then we wonder why it doesn't work. And then we get it out of our budget, and then our city always stays behind.
Yeah.
And but to me, it was still weird. So I'm very persistent. So I kept going. And it even got me into doing like, some of my own events. People would be like, well, I don't understand what's the value in working with a creator. And I just heard that so many times here in St. Louis that I'm like, fine, I'll do my own events and they sell out.
Yeah.
And there's other people that will host their own events, they sell out. So you're seeing these things sell out, but these other events that have been around for a long time are just attendance is getting lower
Hmm.
and they'll put so much money into traditional marketing, traditional media. Like I said, not to knock what they're doing, but at the end of the day, it's a business. You got to follow where the eyes are, where the people are. You want those people at your events. So what was the question? I forgot where I was. Oh, how do I transform from food to art?
Or
like
to
the culture.
general, yeah, to cultural.
Yeah. So kind of tie it back in. So it was like, it was teaching all these other people, hey, let's do food content. But then I realized the need, like no one was really highlighting the arts and culture side. It was like, the same platforms were highlighting the same style of St. Louis. So
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, let me get back over here and help these other people that don't have an opportunity, a voice, a seat at the table, and people that are talented that I feel like should be highlighted.
Yeah.
So I saw that as an opportunity to showcase it. I still think it's a huge opportunity in St. Louis. Like we say, we value our artists, and we know we have a lot of talent. We have so many talented people, but like we have to support them while they're here. I think it was Brian Owens. He was on my podcast and he says something that sticks with me. He's like, St. Louis provides the roux to the world, but they don't provide the roux to their own city. And for those who don't know about
Mm.
roux, is, gumbo, right?
Mhm.
So
Ooh,
for me, yeah, I know
snaps. That's good.
it sticks with you, but it's like we have all these talented people that are doing these things all over the country and all over the world. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. This person from
Mhm.
St. Louis, wow,
Yeah.
cool. So then I hit them up when they're here.
Yeah. Like just learning that the new pope, he kind of got his start in I'm not Catholic, so I'm gonna butcher all of the
Mm-hmm.
terms, but he
Saint,
got his start in being that kind of road to being the Pope in St. Louis, being a
oh
part of
really?
the archdiocese. I believe that's correct, but at least I know that he started here,
Mm-hmm.
and it came out recently. But there's a ton of people like that that start here that get their base
Mm-hmm.
to that Rue analogy, that they get their base, they get their foundation, and all of the thing that makes them
Mm-hmm.
here, and then they go out into the world and they give that to the world, and they don't necessarily keep it here.
Right.
And I know we definitely have a lot that we can dive into that, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanna get into that. I also want to hear a little bit more about how when you're, and this might feed into it, but um through the work that you've done and all of the different brands and restaurants and companies and organizations that you've been able to help represent, what have you learned about St. Louis through that scene and through those experiences that outsiders or people that are here, actually probably more so people that are here that haven't been able to get out,
Mm-hmm.
tend to either overlook or not realize?
I see two sides of that, right? So when the more and more I learn about these people, I dive in, I go to their restaurants. It's like, wow, we have some of the most talented people in the world. People that when they go to another market, their restaurant is sold out automatically for a month.
Mhm.
But in this market, uh, this is a good sound clip. Like I really believe like St. Louis, we're spoiled. We have so many we have so many great things and so many fun things that people can do, so much free stuff that we always want to just point out the bad things.
Mm.
Like we literally, it's like here you go, all this stuff, and then you just complain.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there are things we should be upset about, like, how many potholes I hit here.
Mm.
Hopefully, this is the right
Okay.
podcast for that, right? But how many potholes I drive up, King's Highway and I hit, right?
Mhm.
And we all can relate to that. It's very relatable. But
Yes.
like,
Yeah. Relatable content.
hopefully, there's a right show for it. But like we have so much talent, and we just take it for granted. I
Mhm.
think that's one of the things I've really learned, and like, you know, one of my good friends is a very, very talented chef. When he goes to another market, his stuff sells out so fast. And in
Yeah.
St. Louis, it's always who is this person? What high school they went to? I just saw that person with that person. I don't know if I'm going to eat their food. It's just like all these weird layers and
Yeah.
elements to it. And so, we prevent ourselves from growing and embracing these people that that end up getting picked up from St. Louis and going on national shows or getting picked up by other chefs. So I would say I get to meet and speak with these people, very talented, very passionate, visionaries. But then, with the everyday people, they feel and I'm an everyday person, right? Like I get to do really cool stuff, but I'm
Mhm.
just a normal person.
Mhm.
But it's like we're intimidated by it because we don't
Mm.
think we're good enough to experience this or good enough to experience that like in our own backyard.
Interesting.
But like when we go to another city, we're like, oh yeah, let's do this. And it's like, when I travel, I want to do something I can't do here. So
Yeah.
if I can experience a graffiti wall, well, I go to other cities and check out their art too.
Yeah.
But
Art is different.
let's just say like a certain type of dish.
Yeah.
If I'm going to eat that here in St. Louis, if I'm going to go to another market, if I go up to Chicago, maybe I'll go up there and compare the two, but I won't be like, oh, we don't have, Mediterranean food in St. Louis,
Yeah.
or it just wouldn't be the same, but yet I didn't try it.
Yeah.
So I think we just got to really like when I dove in and really started to like focus on everything St. Louis had to offer, it was really like shaping my perspective of, how I can see the world. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm in St. Louis and I start off here, but then when I go down to Miami, oh, cool, Wynwood, like that place is beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to check this place out. And then I can, see what, Wynwood walls look like, and I can see what the walls of Washington and St. Louis look like
Yeah.
and where there's potential.
Yeah.
So I hope that kind of like answered that.
No, I think so. And there is kind of this thought amongst, I think, especially kind of your younger professionals or your more emerging talents, that you have to leave St. Louis in order to be successful. And I think people that are in some of these other professional settings, or that um, maybe are the powers that be, so to speak, would push back on that, or they want to
Mhm.
believe that that's not true. However, the experience of people that are in those spaces is like, no, this, we are telling you, this is very true. We've got people who've started major, huge brands that won't come here
Mhm.
because when they tried to start here, they couldn't get the support and funding that they wanted. They couldn't get those doors opened, which is very interesting because I like to say, people talk about the high school thing and
Mhm.
all of that. I like to say that St. Louis isn't necessarily cliquey; we're familiar, and I think
Mhm.
that a lot of the things that you just kind of acknowledged fall into this familiarity that we have with everything. We like comfort. I mean, we are very Midwestern and we like our comfort
Yep.
foods, we like our comfort spaces, we like our comfort people. We don't necessarily want to, but definitely don't need to venture out too much in order to do the things. We are spoiled.
Mhm.
We and I know I'm very much so spoiled, and I don't really like a lot of traffic. I want to get to where I'm going very quickly. The
Yeah.
whole 10-minute to get to anywhere thing, I like it.
Yep.
I like not having to park and walk very far to get places. Um, but I also know that like we have to change that at some point too
Mhm.
in order to see our city and our region grow. And I'm intrigued by, I guess, kind of your experience in all of the different types of people that you've gotten a chance to meet,
Mhm.
and how some of that all comes back down to, we don't support our own as much as we like to support others.
For sure.
That's kind of what I'm hearing, and I've heard from many of our peers.
Mhm.
So I'm as a young professional who you have built your platform mostly organically.
Mhm.
Um, you then had some brand deals and things like that. Talk a little bit more about like your experience and not being able to get the support that you hoped that you would, and how you found ways to pivot. And then kind of touch on some ways that, um, again, those powers that be can be a little bit differently supportive
Yeah.
for the talents that we have.
Yeah. What's really cool about St. Louis is we have how many Fortune 100 companies? Quite a few, right?
Yeah.
And then like how many of them are actively working? You like, yeah, they do great things in their neighborhoods and for nonprofits, but like you look at places like Nashville where the corporations got behind that the country music scene,
Hmm.
right? And I had the opportunity to speak with someone that has made a really good impact in St. Louis, and he talked about just how he couldn't get the corporations to get behind the music scene of here, and it's like St. Louis is we've shaped hip hop the last 10, 15 years, um, with people like Metro and so many others, right?
Hmm.
And you look at sports, who won the championship last year, right? Jason
Yeah.
Tatum. You look at the NHL, who won that? Who won the like we just have it, right?
Yeah.
But it's I would love to see the bigger corporations in St. Louis get behind like, yes, it's good to sponsor the sports team and bring a sports team here. I think that's great, but there's incredibly talented people that all they need is a little bit of an investment in them. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be me, but it'd be cool if there's let's say a summer concert series in a neighborhood that's full of art that brings in these talents from all over the world. I think that could be really cool. I'm very vague in the way that I talk, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but it's outside of St. Louis. I think they know what we have to offer. So when I go out of town, they treat us very well. And
Yeah.
there's been so many concepts I've now it's becoming the norm here. But like I've pitched here, and I'm like, hey, I could do X, Y, Z, and it'll be like, nope, we don't believe in that. And then I go and I take it to another market, and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool, let's do it. And
Yeah.
then when I come back to St. Louis, they don't work with me. Even though I
Mm-hmm.
pitched it, they'll just work with somebody else. And we just got to get over that. Like, I think it goes back to that high school question though.
Yeah.
Because did we ever grow out of, oh, this is a tough one. Did we ever grow
It's
out of
fine
the
to go
high
there.
school? Like the high school question? Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I had a great time. I was homecoming king, all this and that, right?
See, I didn't.
So you probably don't, like, I had a good
I don't
time.
ask that question.
The high school?
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm in my 30s. I went to 5 different colleges
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
different things. You know
Yeah,
how like
yeah.
credit hours, like,
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it.
shout out to Missouri State, shout out to Lindenwood, and then like 5 community colleges to fill in the $83 a credit hour.
Look, you gotta get it where you can.
Yeah. But it's I think that's just one of those things too, though. It's like we got to grow out of those things. Like, hey, look, like I'm the type of, and people ask me like, how do you have so many relationships with all these different kinds of people? I'm like, I just treat them with respect. I'm nice, and like there are people that I could have met 3 years ago, and we just start talking about a project now.
Yeah.
And it's just building those relationships. But we're so old school in the way that we think, and I say we, it's just like the overall
Mhm.
city that I don't know if it's like too much pride maybe
Mm.
to admit like, man, I should have just done, like, that's why nowadays when people just tell me no, I'm like, cool, whatever, like I know it's gonna get picked up
Yeah.
elsewhere. Did I answer your question? I feel like
No, you're getting there. And regardless,
yeah.
I like the dialogue. I think again, we've had plenty of conversations where we can
Yep.
ramble for hours and be like, oh dang, I gotta go to this meeting. But
Mhm.
we have a similar perspective because we've been able to experience a wide view, a wide lens of St. Louis.
Mhm.
Like I grew up in kind of all over the place. We started on the west side, moved out to O'Fallon at some point. I went to school in Clayton because I was in DSEG.
Mhm.
And my church had so many different people that I got to know from North County to South City, all
Mhm.
the way and then my chapter of my sorority was over in Edwardsville, Illinois. So I got to know the full gamut of what is considered the St. Louis region.
Yeah.
And so I think being able to have all of these different perspectives add to this collective when we're trying to figure out why do we see the city, and when I say the city, I mean the region,
Mhm.
the way that we do? Why do we talk about it the way that we do? And then when you go away and you spend time in other markets and other spaces, I went to school for 4 years outside of the region. And so there were a lot of things that when you say like that move away from high school, there was a whole college experience that I know happened here with my peers that all went to Missouri schools where they road tripped and they went to visit one another and
Yeah.
they stayed connected in a way that I only got to do during the summers.
Mhm.
But it adds to, I think, again, that familiarity that we have with one another that it then becomes kind of hard to break out of and
Mhm.
into. So another thing that I think we struggle with here is how transplants end up experiencing this space. And I know plenty of people that have come here and said, oh, no, that's not for me.
Mhm.
And they moved away because they couldn't answer the high school question, for a lack of a better way to
Yeah.
describe the bigger issue, right? And so I'm curious for you, where do you see some of our bigger opportunities, I guess, to move out of that
Mhm.
and get away from some of that, or not even get away from it? Because I think that the familiarity of this city and this region is what makes it kind of great. I
Mhm.
think that because we are close, it's people get here and initially their feeling is it's cozy. Like they feel that, people still live down the street from their grandma and like things
Yeah.
like that. But how do we lean into it in a way that is still inviting,
Mhm.
and allows us to usher in the type of growth that we want. And I think even still be able to control it. Like people get scared of change. And I think that there's a way that we can do both. We can grow, we
Yeah.
can change while also maintaining the core of who we are. We offer something that nobody else in this country, in this world offers here in St. Louis. And so how do we lean in? How do we like what from your observation and your opinion, how do we
Mhm.
figure out how to do both?
Speaking about offering things no one else does, we got the Tony Award winning Muni. Yeah, got to give him a
Yes.
shout out. You know,
Yes. We love
um,
that.
but yeah, like I think, like in St. Louis, what I've realized, uh, Chef Jr. and I have tried like really cool, innovative things in the
Mhm.
past, and it's hard to get support on some of those projects, but then they love the ideas to where we've seen it taken and placed elsewhere.
Mhm.
Um, but what we by doing that, like I've at least been able to like, and he's learned too, but like we've learned that you got to attach yourself to what the people know. So in St. Louis is the familiarity. That's hard to say with a St. Louis accent.
I know.
But yeah, like what do they know? So if you try to start something new, it's going to be a little bit tougher than if you attach yourself to Cinco de Mayo, 4th of July. Like, what does this city know? They know their
Yeah.
holidays. They know you attach yourself. If there's like a Blues playoff game, everyone's going to go out like
Yeah.
to certain places. Downtown's going to pop, right?
Yeah.
But a transplant that could be coming from another city, they're just confused because they're like, wait, so you're telling me the only time it's worth going out in downtown St. Louis is like when there's a sporting event?
Like, no. There's
Right.
so much more.
And it's like, but then we got to tell them where.
Yeah.
So they have
That's
to be
true.
in the know. But I love transplants. If you're a transplant, shout out to you all because I love transplants because
Yeah.
they're so open minded. They
Yeah.
want to do really cool, fun stuff.
And they chose here. Like that
Chose here, yes.
whether it was because of job or things that
Yeah.
maybe felt a little outside of their control, they are choosing, they are actively deciding to get to know this place in a
Mhm.
way that I think how you acknowledged earlier that people that are from here can be a little spoiled or take for granted all the great things,
Mhm.
and they're like lifting up rocks and doing all of the things and saying
Yeah.
like, what do you mean you haven't been to such and such? um there's two things that I would really want to talk to you about. One is downtown.
Mhm.
So, while typically when we talk about the city, we talk about the region.
Yeah.
There is here our kind of the city county divide,
For sure. Yeah.
and you acknowledged earlier that we have the city, the county, and then like St. Charles County, and then there's Illinois. And so when it comes to downtown specifically, because that's where Inside City is recorded, we
Mhm.
are in the Post building. And a lot of what we're doing is trying to bring some attraction, some interest,
Yes.
and information about the downtown area. Start with a blanket question. What are your views about downtown? Go with it wherever you want.
Downtown, my views, I wish it was thriving more.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people that care and they want it to. There's we have to, we think back to like what about over a decade ago. The landing was a really cool spot. Like I got to
Mm-hmm.
experience about 2-3 years.
Solid. Yeah.
Yeah, 2-3 solid years. I think it was like when I was 21, 22,
Mhm.
maybe it was 23. Like you look at Ballpark Village and when that opened, right?
Yeah.
And then you started to see, I don't think people really even talk about it. I think like real locals do, but like the landing was cool.
Mm-hmm.
When I turned, I think 23 is when Ballpark Village
Yeah.
opened and it became like every bar you can think of was in there. The piano bar. So that shut down the one on the landing.
Yeah.
Then all these different kinds of bars. And yes, it's convenient. You can go on like nowadays I count my steps, right? Because I eat a lot and I need to stay, burn some calories. But like you went from being, well, I guess the landing, you at least had to do some walking. Ballpark Village is like all right there.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the first things. And then what happens? Like less people are there. Then you start hearing about, some crime and stuff. And then the landing really became nothing. And then now it's, a place where actually I heard like apartments and things like that are selling very well there.
Yeah,
That's at least
it is becoming a quiet residential neighborhood is
It-
what I keep hearing.
a quiet residential neighborhood. Yeah. From literally being like the Beale Street of St. Louis. And then kind of like the same thing you saw with like Wash Ave. And I think from at least the outside looking in, it was like Wash Ave the nail in the coffin really was the pandemic.
Mm.
And so now you have people that come from the outside, they get off 64, you get people that they get off 64, they go to Ballpark Village, they go to the game, which, we enjoy, but then they go out. But what that prevented was like people from going to all the local bars.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to acknowledge like what happened, but then also it's like, okay, well, how do you get people to these other places?
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a buddy and he was talking about like just north of the dome, like we just spent all that money on this beautiful, extension, but then you have the factory or not factory, what is it? The Vest
Oh, mm-hmm.
spot
Yeah.
or that building there that just caught on fire recently,
Yeah.
and it's just like,
The Battle District.
yeah, we get people in St. Louis. Look at our new state of the art convention center. Then like right across the street, you have that.
Yeah.
So that's like my observation. Like downtown, I want to see it succeed, but it's just been interesting to me. Like you look at, oh man, these are some good bits. But like these are just like what we think of as normal people. Like we started to see all the news networks move out of the city,
Mm-hmm.
and we got to hear them talk about always all the bad stuff in the city. And my friends in the county are like, yeah, we're having the same stuff out here.
Yeah.
And then like all of them are moving out here. They're moving out west. And what's popping up? Like Westport's a cool place,
Mhm.
but they're having everything that was in the city is popping
Yep.
up there. So then you have Chesterfield that's also going to build. So my thoughts, and this, like I do consulting, like I've done stuff with really, really, really big companies, right?
Yeah.
If I'm St. Louis, this is free advice. Guess what? You at least have all of Illinois. You have all the city residents. Like, let's see what we can do over there to bring them in. Because right now it's like very siloed.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, okay, we're going to build our Creve Coeur town
Mm-hmm.
downtown. We're actually going to build this whole new downtown Chesterfield. We're going to
Mhm.
build this whole new St. Charles. Actually, we have the main street. Now we're going to do streets. It's like they want it all siloed. And that's fine because like other cities, they have that too.
Yeah.
It's just, I think we got to figure out, like what can attract people
Yeah.
east of the river. We have the sports, we have the art, we have everything. Like my wife and I talk about it. Like St. Louis City is like, no matter what, we're always there. We're always surviving. They're
Mhm.
always coming to us.
Yeah.
We're not going out there. I mean, sorry, I do go out there. They have some good restaurants, right? But it's, I guess my thoughts are all over the place. Like I want to see downtown succeed. We got to listen to the people. We do have to listen to the businesses. We got to
Yeah.
find a common ground.
Yeah.
And make sure people feel comfortable. When people feel comfortable, they'll spend money
Yeah.
and they'll bring their friends. And the more people that are out there, the less crime that'll happen.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something super interesting about people feeling comfortable. But some of the reason why people don't feel comfortable is because of the narrative.
Mhm.
Some of the narrative is either false or exaggerated or not taking full context into play. And so it's now become like perception is reality,
Mhm.
which is valid, but I know a lot of people that live on the other side of 170, and this is not a shade or a knock, but that think that downtown starts at Grand Center, and or that it starts at Skinker,
Mhm.
which is just where
Oh,
the
I
city
forgot.
line is, right? So then you've
Yeah.
got people that are like, oh, I'm not going downtown, and it's like, oh, downtown is actually way for like there's so much more. I don't know if a lot of people, I have been able to submerge myself in all things city through my day job, but there are 79 different neighborhoods
Too many.
within the city of St. Louis
Too many.
alone, right?
Yeah.
But each of those have their own kind of personality,
Mhm.
or they have their own thing that's going.
Yeah.
And some are differently known than others, right?
Yeah.
You've got the Central West End that is well known.
Mhm.
You've got the Grove that's well known. But then there's also like Shaw that is well known, but is I think becoming more well known over the years as people have kind of
Mhm.
been migrating back to that neighborhood. And so one of the things that we talk about in this downtown circle that I get to sit on and work with as we look for solutions for how to repopulate and create density in
Mhm.
this space is being able to allow this to be somewhat of a front door
Yeah.
to the rest of the space. I don't know if people realize that like there are riverboat tours, not just the one that
We have
that we have
gateway.
that's a
Yeah.
couple of hours and you come back, but like people do whole tours down the Mississippi, like
Mhm.
tour boats that they dock here, they stay here, and literally their front door is the riverfront.
Uh-huh.
And so not having the landing being this place that's bustling, that has activity, you go to other cities that are on the water and they use their water totally different than how we have. And I
Mhm.
know there have been plans, I have seen some of them, and for whatever reason that we have tons of plans around this city. We are not shy of those.
Yep.
But choosing to um create those opportunities and open those up. Again, I think some of it goes back to that familiarity thing of when people come from other parts of the region or even
Mhm.
outside, they go to the games,
Yep.
they go to Ballpark Village, they
Mhm.
hang out, they may go to one of the places along Broadway, but they don't necessarily venture out to do more. And so
Right.
we've been trying to figure out how to do that piece. And I think what you said about appealing to the ill side, but I think one of the other ways that we connected was through when we did the study about downtown,
Oh,
and I
yes.
posted and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, guys, yeah, everybody has something to say. Here's the time where I'm going to bring it back to
Yeah.
the table and actually give it to people that are making
Mhm.
decisions. What are your thoughts? And you were like, here they go. You get me?
I forgot
A
about
lot
that.
of
Yeah.
a lot of ideas and thoughts and feelings. And I think sometimes, again, the people that are the decision makers don't realize how attached we are maybe to some of these things
Mhm.
and the opportunity to invite us into those conversations. So if you were in my shoes or the
Mhm.
work that I get to do, how would you invite people into the conversation to talk about what they want to see and how to kind of rebuild and create the density that we're looking for?
It's a multi-year effort, but I think it's well, and you do a great job. You put yourself into those areas, like you put yourself into like because we see each other at
Mhm.
random events. Sometimes it's across the room, you know what's going on. But
Yeah.
you put yourself into those different rooms, so it's like the whole like build it and they will come. Like that used to be a thing, but people connect with people, and it's like you think about collaboration in this city, and the word gets thrown out a lot and I'm the like I don't know. I collaborate with all kinds of people. Like I'm open to it. We can always find ways things can make sense. What I've seen on all different levels, whether food festivals, developments, investors, things like that. It's collaboration. tr- Traditionally in St. Louis is amongst my friends with different interests. It's
Yeah.
not like, hey, you know what? This person right here has a really great following. They're hosting these events every other week. They're bringing in 500 people. They're doing great things in the community. Instead of like working with that person, be like, you know what, like I'm gonna invest into that person. Like
Yeah.
whether it's some dollars, wisdom, mentorship, whatever. It's like I like what they're doing. Let's do it over here. And it
Yeah.
goes back to that thing I said where it just fails. I think one of the ways that could really work is actually listening and caring. Because one, if you care,
Mm.
downtown could get better. And it's like, what can I do for you? And
Yeah.
that's one thing, I always, whenever I talk like to you or whoever, is just like, yeah, what can I do? Do I need to connect you with somebody? Like
Mhm.
what's going on? And we could just like figure it out, but we got to build more relationships instead of it all being just transactional. Cause that stuff's just in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's so many people right now that are doing incredible things that can
Yeah.
bring the people.
Yeah. And I
Right.
think genuinely wanting to see people win. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things I love about what you do is
Mhm.
that you're always hyping somebody up. And I mean, yes, it's the foundation of the work that you do, but like
I fell
even your
into the work.
peers,
Yeah.
right, that do similar things,
Mhm.
you don't not share their posts because oh, that's going to take away from my following. You're like,
Mhm.
no, the more you thrive, the more I get to thrive, and we
The
get
more
to
St. Louis thrives.
exactly, and
Yeah.
everybody goes up. And I think that is something I will say. I believe that many of the partners I work with, we're doing a much
Mhm.
better job of, and we've got room to grow. But there's an intentionality and an interest in partnership,
Mhm.
and like, okay, we can't do this by ourselves. And you're really good at that thing. We're really good at this thing. but if we come together, we can apply for this grant together. Or if
Yeah.
we come together, we can kind of attack this at different angles
Mhm.
and see the change that we want to see in our region. But
Mhm.
it comes with the choice to not gatekeep, not keep for self, take ego out, all of
Oh, for
those
sure.
different
Yeah.
things. And I know I think that has been a habitual thing that we're
Mhm.
learning how to get out of. Um,
I think because we see many years later that it just fades. If you didn't have that passion and you just took someone's idea, it just fades and it
yeah,
dies.
yeah,
Rather than those who are actually passionate, they'll just keep going.
yeah. So tell me about some of your favorite passionate people that you would love to see be further poured into, and you don't necessarily have to give their names,
Yeah, yeah.
but you can give kind of the what they do, and where you would love to see some more interest and support from those that have it to give.
Well, like a few years ago, I was really, really pushing for like the creator economy.
Mm.
And what I often see in St. Louis is like, in order for a creator economy to happen, there has to be one big person or one big entity over that, and they can kind of dictate and control the success of that. And so, like, what I was hoping with a creator economy, and we're working towards it, but like, getting the big companies here in town to work with these different kinds of creators. So a lot of times, like I have an MBA, emphasis in marketing. I come from corporate, so I can talk that language. I'm also a creator, so I can be like that translator. I'm also
Mhm.
in St. Louis, but then I work with national brands, so I like bring that all together. And so it's like a lot of times when I'm working with places, whether it's the first person, and I was the first person in professional sports to do all these food reviews, like in the
Mhm.
at Bush
Which,
Stadium, and now
yeah.
that's done all over the country and all over the world, right? But I'm usually like the first one into these places. I show them, because we're in the show me state, got to show them what we're about, what we can do, and then others are able to come in,
Yeah.
right? But there's been people that have asked, like, man, I want to stay here, and I'd have to tell them, like, look, yeah, you have the beautiful murals of Paint Lewis, you have this skating park, this and that, but like you're trying to make a living out of this. You can't do that here. And that was
Mhm.
like the toughest thing for me to say. But then that same person, he's really good at, with the scooter. The scooter, anyways, he's at like a Will Smith event like a few weeks
Okay.
ago. He was with another account that I follow with like a bunch of like senior citizens that they
Oh,
do
that's cool.
a lot of fun videos out in
Yeah.
like LA. Like he was
Yeah, I
just
love them.
with, I'll show you the video. He was just with them working on stuff. But like that's one of the guys that I was like, I don't want to have to say it, but I had to. And because I know some people out in LA and they're just like, oh yeah, people are always like, you need to connect with that person because y'all would be good at this. And
Mhm.
I know you and I are like that here, but not many people are.
Mm.
It's always like, I'm not going to give you that because then that's going to prevent me from growing. It's like
Yeah.
weird stuff. So that has been tough for me to actually have to tell people that. Um, so I mean, where I'm at like now, like a lot of my peers is we we have conversations because we do have to branch out.
Yeah.
We've hit the peak of what we could do here.
Mm.
And I like, don't get me wrong, like I'm still making my stuff here. I'm hitting up all these delis every Saturday, but we're at a point where we have to grow outside of here in order, because I've had like Murphy Lee on my podcast before, and he said it well with like the lunatics. Like everyone's like, oh, I see you're doing your music thing, and then like they'll go to shows, but it took them like leaving and then coming back, and then everyone's
Mhm.
like, oh my goodness, that's my cousin. Probably doesn't even know who that person is or whatever.
Yeah.
But you have to like grow, you have to get the credibility, and so yeah, it's BradenSTL, but companies are flying me to Miami to eat at food festivals there.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, I guess like that's just kind of like the people I talk to is like we're at a point, unfortunately, we have to branch out. I fully believe if we can even just get 5 of the 7 or 9 Fortune 100 companies to, if they're listening to this and they want to connect, I can tell you how we can build it, how we can shape it. And guess what? It's not all the money coming into me and then I don't pay creators. Like I'm seeing that more now.
Mhm.
Whenever I was really trying to push for that creator economy, it's like because when that's another thing. People ask how I have good relationships with creators. I make sure they're compensated. Like, hey,
Right.
here's my budget. This is what I can do versus, we'll give you some exposure, we'll give you this, and
Yeah.
then I keep 100% of that. Like, it's crazy, but like they don't, they want to be in control, and what they're doing is just hurting. But I'm curious, at what point will people catch on that they're profiting off of the struggles of the city rather than helping to contribute to the success of the city?
Yeah. Which then also lends to their own ability to be more successful. The more
Yeah,
revenues coming into the city and opportunities are coming into the city, that means there are now more opportunities for you. People like to think that LA and New York are oversaturated. It's like, no, they just have a never-ending pool of opportunities
yeah, that's it.
that
Yeah,
that people can then be a part of, and we keep cutting off our opportunities and stopping them
yeah.
before they're able to like really flourish and grow.
I
Um,
like how, yep, what you just said.
yeah.
And it's like, let's just get over that. Like, even talking to you about coming on here and speaking, I'm like, I really have nothing to lose. I'm not
Mhm.
saying anything bad, problematic. I'm not saying any names in particular, things like that. But it's just like, I'm around so many people that want to see the city. Yeah, can't even talk. I'm around so many people that want to see the city succeed, and they've all had to like just figure it out on their own because they've had the
Mhm.
doors shut. The media hasn't included them. But we always talk about, we got the support of the people, which is
Yeah.
like the biggest thing. We got the people support. But I'm connected to so many people like that. It doesn't matter. Like, we can do really cool stuff without those who would probably make tens or hundreds of millions of dollars if they invested in us. A small portion, like literally, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you own a
Yeah.
building downtown and you want to work with like a creator, like your building is sitting there, it's not aging well. You know, you could work with us. We can drive up the value of your building, but also we can drive industry here. I don't know.
Mm.
That's a whole. I do
Yeah.
consulting too.
Yeah.
I have a marketing agency, guys. I literally do this.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, I meet with like really big brands, really
Yeah.
big creators. Like, Lil Wayne says, has Lil Wayne been quoted on this?
I don't know which
Real
one.
G's move in silence like lasagna. There we go.
Yes.
Bam.
Yes.
Y'all just see the food. That's
Yeah.
it. They don't
Wait,
see the
look,
conversation.
we should make it a point to have a Lil Wayne quote for every episode.
No, like, hey, or I could do Nelly. I'm from the
Right.
hood. I'm
No.
proud, right?
Yeah. And that's the one I think I live by. Is
Mhm.
like, I am from this city. I love this place. It is a huge part of who I am and why I care the way that I do and want not just the city, but the world to be this beautiful, wonderful place that I
Mhm.
believe in. My belief system was shaped here. I also see a ton of opportunities, and I think people that come from out of the city see those opportunities as well. And then you have like a small group of people within the city that see those
Mhm.
opportunities. Um, but we all need to kind of see them and then decide to work together in order
Mhm.
to see those happen. I I have one more question as we kind of wrap up. There, I know is a sometimes a skill gap or
Mhm.
a the gap in understanding of these different groups, right? So you've
Mhm.
got the business environment and kind of again all of those Fortune 100 companies, these big
Mhm.
pockets. And then you've got the creators that don't necessarily know how to have those conversations. And I know
Yeah.
that you consult and sometimes you consult with them, but how would you advise both sides? So the creator that has all the talent and
Mhm.
the passion and the interest, but doesn't know how to create the contract, doesn't know how to have the right conversation and discussion so that they don't get exploited,
Oh, yeah.
so that they can, right, they can get what they're owed and what they're due, but also so that they're speaking the same language as the company that has certain priorities and metrics and things that they need to meet. And when they are deciding to take this
Mhm.
risk on this up and coming talent, um, that person doesn't fumble the bag essentially.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah.
then also on the other side, how can these companies be a little bit more either patient and understanding, or how can they start to better prepare, communicate what their expectations are, what their interests are, and not just assume
Mhm.
that this other group has it? I think it's like a language barrier
Oh, it is.
almost
Yeah.
that. So I'm curious your perspective on that.
That's a great question. So let's talk about the first half, the creator side. It's kind of interesting. A good friend of mine, him and I were talking about, because people like, Brad, you're an influencer. And I always tell him I'm an experiencer. And that brings the influence, right? I'm not like, I guess I would rather you go to something and experience it. But then, like, if I am getting paid by a brand, I do have to have some sort of call to action. But like
Yeah.
a lot of things just seem like infomercials that I consume nowadays. So I always just try to keep being different. What I tell creators, like, so a lot of them I connect with early on and just like, hey, if you need something, just let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Because like a lot of people, they're afraid to ask for help or
Mm-hmm.
how to negotiate, what to look out for. I even have like on the business side, whether it's how do
Mm-hmm.
I say it? Like, just let's say on the business side, like I'll have them literally say, "Hey, we were looking at your content yesterday. Like, just brought him on to help me with this, and we're looking at some strategies." And I'm like, I do consulting, you know. So for the creator side, um, I used to do a lot of stuff for free, and I still help out small mom and pops as much as I can, right? But
Yeah.
now I have to start paying editors. I have to keep growing. I have a team I got to pay. Know your worth, execute, stay consistent. Like you have to be consistent. Like, even right now, like I used to post 2, 3 times a day because I wanted to see people post often because I wanted more
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis content so I can see what's going on here,
Yeah.
because I'm always curious and I get to see it, I get to consume it. It was like a 4-phase process. And some people have heard me talk about it on my stories. And right now we're right in the second phase. And only like 2 people know, and I don't disclose that to anybody. But it's a multi-year phase of how to push it. And people always ask, like, how does that work? What if people don't listen to you? I'm like, you don't have to listen to me, but like the what I'm doing is working, right? It works, right? Just think about one day when big Hollywood movies are shot here. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be. I guess it's not a Hollywood movie. It's a St. Louis movie, right?
Yeah.
So that's how far I think.
Yeah.
But for the creators, understand your value. You got to execute. Don't you got to be authentic. You got to. The reason my value is higher than others who may have a bigger social following is like I'm actually building relationships with people. Like I have yet to. I mean, I do pop-up bars where I
Mm-hmm.
partner, but like I have an event I'll probably plug at the end of this episode, which is going to be like one of the first ones where I'm actually saying like, hey, yo, this is 100% mine.
Yeah.
This isn't just a 50-50 partnership kind of thing. But yeah, just showing up, being consistent. Don't always expect, to get paid if it's on a local end. Be careful with affiliate marketing, make sure you're not just pushing a product for commission. Make sure you get some payment for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Be creative, don't copy. AI can give you, maybe it could help you with some ideas, but live theater and art will give you more.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the live theater, Tony Award winning Muni, the
Hello.
Fox, right? But no,
Yeah.
like the series, I do not watch much TV. It's
Yeah.
literally going to those shows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that kind of answers, got to know your value, be careful, know your, shout out to the, teenagers, the college students that
Yeah.
really helped shape me thinking like, oh, name, image, likeness. I sell my voice. It all has value.
Yeah.
Don't sell your full face and voice and everything to AI. Don't do that for
Yeah.
$500. Don't do that. People do it. Now on the business side, obviously, they have objectives and they have goals. I've spoken to different agencies, different companies, and I hear them talk like, our KPI on this one is going to be more followers, views. And I'm like, I have an MBA in all this. Like, I get what you're saying. Trust me on this other side. If we do this, this will also contribute because your job is to push product. Yes, the views and stuff is great. I think because too in corporate though, it's so they don't care. They just need this for marketing. They need this on operations. And I'm over here like, you need a market to contribute to the operations, and I can push your product here, whatever that product is, by doing XYZ. So on the business side, listen to creators. Um,
Mm.
Understand what you're actually looking for. I think right now, so many people are like, yeah, we're looking to work with an influencer. And luckily, I have a really good business manager. Like, shout out to him because he's saving me so many conversations.
Yeah.
You're asking somebody for a service, right? So if you're going to go get a haircut, if you're going to whatever. Like, are you going to ask your barber to just do it for free? No, you're asking someone for a service.
Yeah.
Why are you reaching out to them? If you think that reaching out to somebody that has 100,000 followers and you want to pay them $5,000, but this other person that is great at storytelling with 5,000 followers, you don't want to pay them that much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just cool. Look at the numbers, but understand them.
Yeah. The
It,
return is often different. Like people that have smaller followings, but their followers do more, right?
yeah,
So you'll get a stronger percentage of the people that are actually doing something. So somebody with 5,000
to convert.
versus 5 million, 5 million people,
Mhm.
only a 1% of that maybe at best is gonna do anything, but you might get
Yeah.
way more. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Um,
I feel like I was very vague on that. I do consulting where I could just break it all down, but it's like,
Call him for consulting, y'all.
yeah, it's like, it just depends. Like, I know there are people with like 800 followers
Yeah.
that I can tell them about something and they'll be able to push it to their people and they'll get like 300 people.
Yeah.
But then there's people with 200, 300, 500,000 that like they may get 20, if that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's like, I let them figure it out. I got a really good business manager, also a good CEO. He'll probably listen to this one.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's dope. Well, this has been a really good conversation. I know that we will continue having these sorts of conversations, trying to save the world one St. Louis at a time.
One St. Louis, I like that. Yep.
But share just with the audience what's next, what else you have going on, where they can find you,
Yes.
and how they support you.
Yes. So Phony's First Fest, August 16th, 2025. This is the first time I'm announcing that. So when does this come out?
Maybe in like a week.
A week?
two.
Yeah. Hey, this is a little, maybe I'll have Insight City. That's going to be a code. I could try to do that, a pre-sale code. So yeah, so it's going to be Phony's First Fest. I feel like I really enjoy going to food festivals, right? I enjoyed going. But what happened is, and I get how things work and how it is. But like when I go to a food festival, I want to try a lot of different food. But I'll
Mhm.
often get stuck because I'm at like, oh, here go 2 spots. That's like $40.
Yeah.
I am not going to spend $300 to eat like full on entree. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're working on this festival, everything's Instagrammable. Everything's going to be delicious. Look, I can have every place in St. Louis in it, but this is just the start. So the way it's going to be formatted is, first off, Saturday, August 16th. I mean, the New York Yankees are in town, right?
Ooh.
So vibes downtown are going to be very high. This is at Tech Artista Trust. I know it's going to be hot. So this is pretty much on the inside of that building. You'll be able to smell the food on the outside. A lot of festivals will have, your Friday, Saturday, Sunday lineup. This is going to be your brunch, dinner, late night, all on Saturday. I know it's going to sell out, so we're already thinking about what a Sunday could look like. I'm not going to promise that. A lot of logistics and a lot of things to put in place. But each time slot will probably have at least 6 to 8 of places with really good cult followings in St. Louis. Like I said, this is the start. So a lot of people are like, how are you going to leave this person out? How are you going to leave that? Like, chill, y'all. But we're going to have different, it's going to be different. And I will help create that excitement about food festivals. I'm working with the vendors to really try to get the price point down to like $5 to $7, very reasonable. Just want to create the excitement. That's all I can really say right now. But I'm working with Christopher, who used to be part of, it was formerly known as Pro Field Reserve, Field Club Media. Now it's Park is his brand. He does amazing stuff on Cherokee Street, but he's a visionary. He's someone that's going to fit the brand of this very well. All I'm going to say is just be excited. I just want that excitement. People know me. They get to see what I do. So it's me taking all this stuff I get to do around the country, going to South Beach Wine and Food Festival, seeing them do stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow, I could do that here.
Yeah.
I have all the connections. I know the good spots.
Yeah.
So, if you go at brunch, it's going to be different than dinner. It's going to be different than late night. You can get an all day pass. We're going to sell those VIP tickets.
Love
you can try 20 restaurants that may take you 3 years to try. You can try them all there. So that's something I'm very, very excited for. So this is the first time I'm talking about it.
exciting.
It's all
Exclusive.
yeah, exclusive. The Insight, you're getting the Insight City exclusive. So it will sell out. It will sell out real
That's awesome.
fast.
Yeah. Talk about the podcast.
Podcast, yes. Opecast the pod, yes. We've had some incredible people. The Jennifer Lewis, the Ozzie Smiths, and we've had Kofi on here. I
Yeah.
know you're a big fan of Muni. Just so many people. But what I really enjoy about that is just really connecting with others and having them share their stories. Oh my gosh, I have so much. I have my marketing agency. So we are a creative marketing agency. That's Space Mission Marketing. You can find us on Instagram, but it's funny. I
Yeah.
do a lot of social media content, but I don't post on there. But we do a lot of stuff. We have a lot of big clients we don't talk about, we don't
Yeah.
share. Real G's moving silence like lasagna, right?
Okay.
But we also have BradenSTL. Another big thing for me moving forward will be on YouTube. It's Brad B Eating. That's BE. When you first type it in, it's gonna show a lot of pictures of or videos of Brad Pitt. That's not me.
Fun.
But if you scroll through there, you'll find me. But it's
Yeah.
I just got to start growing on there. I feel like Instagram, TikTok, I have a good following here, but I got to start branching out more. And as I do that, bring that love and those folks into St. Louis. Like that's my responsibility now.
Yeah. I love that you take responsibility, and I hope you know you're not in this alone. I know you know a bunch of other creatives, but there are also all of these other people in all of these other markets and spaces that we're all working towards the same goal, and that is to see St. Louis be as great as we all know that it can be. So thank you for all that you offer, all that you do.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to all of the things that you're going to do in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm always it's always great seeing you around town.
Yeah.
We share that passion.
Yeah.
And like let's get it. If you're listening to this, like let's just go after it. Let's get it.
Go.
Let's stop the formal well, you got to do formal processes, but like let's get the show on the road. Let's do things.
I love it. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.